Jordan Miller. I'll just give a couple notes on you. You've got a history in the world of crypto and blockchain. You've developed your own crypto, which is Moontree, I believe.
It's actually Satori. I worked for a company
Satori,
called Moontree.
right.
Right.
So Satori and is your current creation, which is it a crypto coin as well, or is it just is it an actual coin that you can buy, or is it just blockchain right now?
It is. It's
Yeah.
it's on exchanges.
Right. And you wanted to create that to essentially gather data and recognize patterns possibly and do some business prediction models using all the data you harvest with Satori?
Yes. Not necessarily me though. The network itself harvests it.
Right. Right. So what was your initial, how long have you been in the crypto world, and what was your initial attraction to that field, to what made you want to start working with it?
Um, well, I got interested in crypto way back in the beginning. So blockchain, I thought was a really fascinating technology, and so that was about 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine and I tried to build kind of a first rendition of this idea, which was called Nereal.
Mm-hmm.
And what we were trying to do was create a blockchain that could predict the future as its actual consensus mechanism. You know, the proof of work, proof of prediction. We were trying to make proof of prediction. And so we were trying to invent a new consensus algorithm, which might be possible, but it was way too much, right? But that was kind of what people were doing back then. There was like Peercoin, and there were like these other ideas, and they were all trying to innovate on the actual consensus algorithm. And then proof
Mm-hmm.
of stake just kind of took it over as the winner, proof of work and proof of stake.
Right. You're probably better to describe this, but I think a lot of people, when they just think of crypto, they just think of an online currency. But there's a lot more to a useful crypto token than just that. Do you want to just give people a description of blockchain, what it is, how it can have use aside from just an exchange currency?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, blockchain is a way for people who don't want to have a centralized authority to come to an understanding that they all agree. So it's called I mean, the technology, the ability that it gave us was distributed consensus. So without a central bank or a central government or something like that, we can come to a agreement, and we can all know that we have come to an agreement on something. So in Bitcoin's case, you know, kind of the easiest and most valuable use case is just um, money itself. So how much tokens do you have? And so that's like one number you got to remember per address. You don't have to remember a whole bunch of information. You don't have to come to consensus on a whole bunch of data. So that's why that was the first use case. And
Mm-hmm.
tokens, you know, I mean, that's kind of what it is. But in theory, it could be any kind of information that you want to know that you agree with everybody else on.
Interesting. So it's still a little complicated to me, and how the people, Ethereum is a crypto that can have a lot of data, online data storage capabilities or data usage capabilities aside from just being a crypto token. Uh, these secondary capabilities can lead to added value to which may help the longevity of a certain crypto token. Would that be correct?
Yeah, yeah. So Bitcoin came along, created digital cash, essentially,
Hmm.
and then other projects came along. Monero was one that said, "Hey, why don't we make this kind of hidden, so we can know that there's value, but we can't actually know where it is." And so that's Monero, kind of privacy coins. And another project came along, Ethereum, which kind of said, well, why don't we allow for any kind of arbitrary kind of computation to be done on these tokens so that we can move them around programmatically, and you can produce a smart contract that allows you to do kind of whatever you want with it. And so yeah, like they first marketed themselves as the world's computer. So they were bringing more arbitrary computation to the blockchain. That was their innovation.
Hmm.
So with that, you can do all kinds of stuff.
So does Bitcoin have any secondary value, or what is driving, Bitcoin essentially being the leader in the field other than being the first one to do it?
From a technological standpoint, it does. So, but it doesn't do it natively down in the Bitcoin core. Really, the secondary value comes from people building stuff on top of the Bitcoin protocol, and so that's kind of the ecosystem there. And in
Mhm.
Ethereum, it's kind of built in the other kind of smart contract chains. It's kind of built in.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of Bitcoin probably daily that's created and fails, and people want to have the next Bitcoin. But obviously, you have to be able to tell, people, especially of born generations before how does this cryptocurrency you can't even touch have value? And it's basically adding to the world of computing and data and the cloud. The cloud's just not floating above us in the head. That is actually there's actually hardware out there with limited capabilities, and you need to have things that are taking up that capability provide other uses.
Yeah,
And if you can be useful, you can create value in that space. Would that be a fair assessment?
yeah, I would say because Bitcoin was the first mover, as the brand name recognition is proof of work rather than proof of
Hmm.
stake. All these things combine, and and it's got a history too. You can't fake the history. So these combine to create a currency, a digital currency, which is kind of standard, and that's why it's the top one. So anybody could make a clone of Bitcoin right now, and it can functionally work exactly the same. But because of the social dynamic that's intertwined with Bitcoin, that's what gives it its value, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, and Bitcoin's worth a lot, but it isn't the only Bitcoin out there that has gained a lot of value. I mean, most of these kick off at fractions of a penny, and it doesn't take long if you can get some traction to these to become very profitable. And everybody's been trying to get invested into that crypto space. And I mean, it was the pump and dumpers of the COVID times of everybody trying to get rich quick.
Yeah.
Everyone had their own Shiba Inu or whatever coin out there, Elon and all that stuff, but very few can make it. Very few. I mean, it's an emerging market, but it's very tough to emerge out, be the cream of the crop in this field. It's highly competitive and takes obviously a lot of skill to produce it well. And you, like you said, you got into this field kind of 2013 was your intro into the world of crypto. You would have been a fairly young guy at that point, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, pretty young. And so I didn't have the programming skills that I have. I didn't, so I was relying on others. And um, yeah, but so that project, the first one that I tried to do with Will Bound, um, it kind of, we weren't able to get the vision, the kind of goal that we wanted to achieve. We could make a prediction kind of consensus algorithm, but it couldn't scale. We wanted to be able to predict everything, right? Anything and everything that people cared about, right? And so
Mhm.
um, that was just too complex to stuff into the consensus algorithm. So we decided to just kind of put it on the back burner, come back to this idea later. And I went off and, like you said, with Moontree, I got involved in startups and kind of learned how to do it better. And when it became apparent, when it became obvious how to do it better, I started putting my efforts into that, and that was Satori.
Mhm. So where did the idea essentially come from for you that, data harvesting, collection, pattern recognition, I'm assuming, could possibly successfully become a prediction tool? Uh, that's an ambitious idea, obviously. I'm just wondering how you thought it was possible.
That goes way back to like 2012, 13, when I was first thinking
Mhm.
about the basic fundamental concepts. And and if you if you want to model the world, you have to use, if you want to model anything, you have to use kind of a deterministic relationships, even if it's probabilistic. They have to be deterministic because if you don't have cause and effect in your model, then you don't really have a model, right? It doesn't make any
Mhm.
sense. So um, the fundamental premise is that if we could see everything in real time and understand what it means, then we could predict everything. We would see the future before it happens in perfect detail. But of course, you can't see every single thing that ever happens everywhere. So you can only approach it. You can only gather as much data as possible and then try to predict the future from that data. And so I guess that is the underlying assumption.
We were talking about how you thought that this could be possible.
Oh,
You had to wait quite a while before you maybe actually felt like the technology was there.
that's right. Yes. And not only the technology was there, but also that everything was aligned. For instance, our attempt on the first one was just wrong. It was not the right way to build this kind of system. So when I saw other systems come out where it wasn't built into the distributed consensus algorithm,
Hmm.
um, that's when I decided to jump back into this idea and say, okay, I have more of a open compute. I can use whatever language I want, and I can kind of build this as a second layer on top of a consensus algorithm. Then that's when I decided to jump in and do it.
So Satori was born. Um, what was your initial predict the future of everything? That is a big term.
Yeah.
Initial practical applications, I guess, probably to make this a profitable platform for yourself. What would be the first predictions that your goal was to make with this software and this crypto
So
blockchain?
my I've had that question from like various investors or business people. I don't think I'm a very good business person because my goal was to say, let's make a world model of future prediction. And so to me, that looks like ingesting all of the government statistics and large market data and heavy influencers on human attention and perception and start there and then get other stuff because if you want to ask more generally, like, okay, well, I want to know about my company's future. You have to look at, okay, what industry is your company in? You have to look at what's going on in those industries, in the technology and in the economics and in the government decisions and in social opinion. And so you have to kind of go broad and kind of gather all that information and figure out where that's going first. And then you can get specific and say, well, as these things evolve in this trend, this is probably what we're going to see. So, so I'd like to make a world model of all the broad data streams on the planet that have the most reach and affect the most other more specific data streams. And that's kind of how I see it.
Hmm. So it's probably started off by like you just had this thing start to just harvest as much data as it possibly could, all the low hanging fruit, without people having to personally check boxes on you can have my data, or how did the data collection start?
Oh, well, the data collection was just open. So it's just a network. It's a network of nodes, and anybody can put on data onto the network. So it's up to them. It's up to the community. It's up to the group. So there was no like. So well, what ended up happening was low hanging fruit, cheap, free APIs, or things that people wanted to see themselves is what initially got put on, which is totally fine
Hmm.
because during the testing and building and development phase, we don't want to tackle the large world model right away, you know. So crypto prices, weather streams, you know, this is kind of the phase of can we take in some data in some domain, some smaller domain, and correlate it together and then start making predictions about all the streams in that domain that are pretty good, right? Better than guessing. And if we can do that, then we can move on and eventually get to that kind of world model vision that I have. So that's kind of where we started. Was just kind of easy stuff to grab.
Hmm. And it seems like you say, you have to go onto the site, download the software, and then do you grant it basically what can it see once you have that software on your computer? Is it just monitoring everything you do,
No,
or what is it collecting?
no.
What is it getting from you to help participate to the system?
So the software starts running and it runs in an isolated container. So it doesn't really
Hmm.
have access to your machine or if you're doing anything else. And, but it connects up to the Satori network and it just asks, hey, so what should I predict? And then the Satori, you know, other nodes in the network say, here's a list of data streams that need predictors. And then it will subscribe to those data streams. So it gets the data from the network and
Hmm.
then it manages its own model of that data. And then it produces a prediction stream about that data. So it adds to the network. It says, okay, now I've got some prediction streams to publish, and anybody can subscribe to them. And that's how it works in general.
So be a great, like the weather was a great example you gave. Weather patterns and weather modeling. I mean, there is tons of software and tons of modeling that goes on that. I think a sector like that would have a pretty good predictor of weather. You know, if you're rivaling something like that, where do you think the Satori network would outshine that kind of software, or would it work as well as current systems?
I don't know what current systems do, but they're probably very
Hmm.
robust and very mature. So I'm not
Hmm.
like looking to compete with that. Um, I mean, of all the things that happen on the earth, that's one of the things that we've already tried to master as humans.
Hmm.
We have weathermen, you know, and so, um, but over time, and you know, with a large, robust Satori network, I don't see why it wouldn't do a pretty good job of that as well. If it's ingesting weather data from um, all kinds of sensors. You know, people can get stuff that they put on their house or whatever. So if it could ingest all those individual data streams across the world and associate them with each other. Now this is interesting, something that the other systems that are more mature probably don't do. They probably don't do the computation in the way that Satori works. Um, they probably bring it all into one place, build a massive model about it, or maybe build lots of models predicting different things about it, and then that's what they have, right? So they
Hmm.
now that's the way I assume it works. I don't really know because that's the way that it's just usually easiest to make things to do this modeling stuff. Satori doesn't work in that way. In fact, actually, it does work in that way, but it works in that way locally on every machine. So, in other words, it builds these models locally many, many times. There's all kinds of redundancy. And then it will share those predictions with each other to help improve those models. So the entire network becomes a large meta model of models. So I don't really assume that that's happening anywhere else, but it could be. But I've never seen it. So that's kind of the edge or the kind of unique thing that Satori brings.
Makes me think of a learning language model almost. You know, it's always improving itself. It can probably, as time passes, check how its predictions went and maybe improve on that. This sounds like very much an AI heavy system. So AI's really taken off very recently, 2013, 2012. You definitely did not have the AI capability we do now. Well, how have you tied AI into your blockchain to support this?
Yeah, it is AI heavy. Um, so the each neuron, each node of the system builds its own models. Like I said, it uses AI algorithms to build those models, and it uses different ones, not just the same one. So what it's doing is it's actually searching a few different conceptual spaces. The first space that it's searching is which algorithm should I use to make predictions about this data stream? You know, it gets a data stream and wants to understand it. Which algorithm should I use to make predictions about it? And so it's searching through the various AI algorithms that it could use and trying to find the best one. Another space that it's searching is what are the hyperparameters of the particular algorithm that it's using that would work best. So it's always switching those out for different hyperparameters and trying to find the best set. And so those are two of the kind of uh, model state spaces it's searching. There's one other space that it's also searching at the same time. And this one is still in development, but it's getting better and better. And that is, in fact, they're all still in development, but this one's less mature than the others. Um, this is the space of what what other data streams should I ingest to help me understand this data stream or to build this
Mm.
model. And so it's always searching through the other data streams that are on the network, trying to figure out which one or which ones kind of give it the most predictive power. And it does that over time. So it'll, choose a set and see how that does, and then it'll choose a different set and see how that does compare. And it's basically the neuron is always searching those three spaces for the best combination, given the particular data stream that it's trying to predict. So yeah, that's how the AI kind of works on the back end.
So, and this, you first launched this when?
Uh, was it 2024?
So
Yeah,
it's new.
yeah.
And so let's just call it 2 years roughly. You've had this up and running, probably been a lot of improvements, a lot of fine tuning. What kind of progress have you seen with it? What kind of predictive success have you had?
So we did have some interesting predictive success. I thought it would not be used on markets right away because
That's my first question. Can I pick a stock?
I thought we would have to become very large and very mature, and in order to get to the point where we can tackle the entropy that's found on markets, because that entropy is like self-referential, and anyway, so I didn't expect that, but turns out people started putting it on crypto prices right away, and we're making trades based on that. Now, we were too busy building the system and building the infrastructure and dealing with those kind of issues to really do any kind of um, like analysis to see how well it's really doing. But the fact that people were using the network predictions to trade the market and claiming to be successful
Hmm.
was awesome. But I have no idea about any of that because I wasn't paying attention to that. I was building the actual technology underneath it. So, um, and I don't know, I don't think anybody's still doing that. We went through a few rough patches in our kind of um, business aspect of the company, of the project. I should
Hmm.
say, like I said, I don't feel like a businessman.
Hmm.
And the social aspect of involving other people in the technology just blew my mind. I could not believe people are the way they are. It was wild to me. So
Hmm.
that was a very, very large learning experience. And but so I would love to say that we had this awesome trajectory where we just took off and were able to focus on the tech the entire time. But honestly, I can't say that that was true. To say that we had some learning curves with kind of the social aspect of the project. But
Hmm.
now we have this really good team. Like in the beginning, it was just me. I was just doing everything. But now we've got a really good team, and um, I'm really happy with it. So we finally got to the point where I feel like we have a good foundation. The technology runs, it works. We're able to improve it constantly. So I'm feeling really good about it right now.
Hmm. How data heavy is it? I mean, are you going to have to be a Google and start looking at building nuclear reactors down the road, or how much juice does this take to run? Must be massive.
Um, uh,
Or is that the Satori thing? Is it kind of uses everybody? If you have it, it's using your processing capability to run it.
there you go. Exactly that.
Yeah.
And so what we're not doing, people might assume this. Um, because this is probably the way most systems that kind of resemble this look. We're not farming out jobs to the nodes and then having it train something and then return weights and then in-house building this large model. So that's what we're not doing. That's probably more easy to do, more efficient, but it also requires that model to be centralized and to be put together by a centralized entity. I really wanted to make this as decentralized as possible. And so what we're doing is we're saying, no, we're going to build small models on any computer that's on the network. Your computer's running Satori, it's building models. And those models stay on those computers. And if that computer goes down, those models are lost. It's gone. And that's, it sounds like a scary thing, and I get that. People are always like seeing that as a problem and saying, well, how do we solve that It's not a problem because every machine or every data stream that's predicted is getting predicted by multiple machines. And so we're building multiple models, and each one of those models is ingesting different other data streams and is using different hyperparameters and maybe even using a different algorithm. So each one of those models is unique, and even though they're predicting the same thing. So we have on this network massive unique redundancy. And so if a computer goes down that's producing a pretty good data stream of predictions, that's okay. There are others, and that's kind of how we do things. Also, as far as you said, like about the data ingestion, all the data is saved locally. So if I want to build a model of something, or if I'm a node and I need to ingest some data, I pull the data from other nodes, and now I have a data set of that data stream that I continually add to as well. Um, but it's kept locally. I don't have to send it up to some central Satori server. I don't have to send my model up. It's all local. There's no huge data center. Um, so yeah, everything's local.
So there is, but you must be sitting at some sort of mothership.
There's some
Like,
kind of coordinating, um, I would say like scaffold. So there's a coordinating central servers that kind of say, okay, look, you're predicting that, you're predicting this. Maybe you two should help each other out. Also,
mm,
let me ingest predictions to see who's doing well, who's doing poorly. That kind of happens. That's to kind of connect it to the blockchain in a way that says, well, we need to reward these predictors for doing well and these predictors less for not doing as well.
mm,
So the entire system doesn't work unless there's a reward for these, the the whole network of nodes. Um, and so there's some centralizing, but even that over time, it's been built in such a way that we can decentralize that over time.
mhm,
So we really don't want to build anything that has to be centralized mothership kind of structure. I look at it all as a scaffold, like a painter's
mhm,
scaffold that when you're done, you're going to bring down the scaffold and you're left with the house or whatever.
mhm. Seems like obviously decentralization was a big selling point of Bitcoin. Um, and it's probably definitely a driving like motivator with what you wanted with this. And it kind of solves its own issue. And how do we decentralize something but yet have a never-ending computing power?
Right.
Well, let's just give it to everybody and use everybody's computing power to decentralize and don't have to build warehouses full of just processors and computers. And so it's kind of like it was a simple but yet ingenious solution to getting this off the ground, really.
Yes.
Um,
A
so,
simple, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So if I'm a person, and I think you're referring to nodes as each time someone has it on their computer, that would be a node in the network, very much like the brain. This is just a huge brain. So I download Satori. What's happening in the background of my computer? When is it running? How is it running? I'm sure it's not bogging my computer down the whole time I'm using it. What is it actually like in practicality for the
It's
user?
running 24 hours a day, unless you turn it off or you have control over that. You can either even like turn it down. You can say, don't use so much processing power. Just take it down to 10%, 1%, whatever you want. So we have that kind of slider on there, but it is running 24 hours a day, every day. So, and what it's doing is basically comes down to those two things we talked about. It's ingesting data, sending data back out in the form of predictions, and then as far as the maybe the heavy lift, that's kind of pretty light. It's not like streaming gigabytes of data all the time, but um, as far as the heavy lifting goes, probably the building of the models is probably the most computationally intensive. So it'll use the CPU. If the algorithm uses GPUs, it'll use those. We're still working on importing a lot of algorithms that use GPUs and getting that to work in Docker. So that's still in development, but it'll use your computing power to do that. And then, of course, for memory, it has to have some place where it can store a little bit of memory to save the models and to save the data. And so, like I said, the data is usually not that big. These data streams, it's not like huge amounts of video data or something at this point. It's just numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, pretty much. It's just maybe years worth, months worth of some kind of floating point number, sourced maybe every minute, every hour, maybe once a day. And so it's small files for the most part. And
Mm-hmm.
and the models are pretty small as well right now. So we're kind of doing this in a stair step fashion where everything's pretty low intensive, or if it's not, like maybe it's pinging your CPU all the time, you can turn it down if you don't want it to be doing that. So um, we're starting out small, and we'll eventually grow and grow and grow, and because that'll just it's just natural,
Mm-hmm.
computation gets bigger, and you have to have more space and more bandwidth. But right now, it's fine. It can run on a laptop computer, and that should always be the case. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
How much data or whatever alternative uses for blockchain, people may not realize how much they're using that or having accessing that other programs or things carried on the back of blockchain in their day-to-day lives. How much is it in the average person's life who has a computer or banks or does anything? How much has AI and blockchain really became a part of our day-to-day?
Oh, AI is everywhere. People talk about the algorithm for
Mm-hmm.
YouTube or the algorithm for whatever. That's all AI. I mean, what people talk about today with the term AI, they usually just mean large language model, which is a particular type of AI that's learned language and can talk. It's a computer that can talk. But the all these algorithms that social media has been using forever, um, these are all AI as well. I mean, you could call them maybe machine learning, but it's basically the same thing in my mind. So, so we use a lot of machine learning algorithms, um, and we're getting into the transformers and the more heavy, deep neural nets. But you really don't need them for what we're doing. Like we're developing it out, but it's overkill at this point. So we're not like making heavy use of them yet. But we will someday because I can see the efficiencies of them. But yeah, AI is everywhere. I mean, it's
How entwined with blockchain is it though? Can maybe you explain that? Maybe I just don't have a thorough understanding of blockchain's usage day to day with AI.
there's several projects that use AI and blockchain, and one of the coolest ones, biggest ones, is the Tau network, the
Mm-hmm.
BitTensor, um, and they have an ecosystem and a platform where you can go on and kind of build an application for blockchain AI. Right? That's kind of their niche. And so it's a really cool platform. Um, we didn't use them because we kind of wanted to be we didn't want to be as constrained as they have it. So they built out this really nice platform with validators and stuff like that, and you can do a lot of cool things. But we wanted to be a little less constrained, so we kind of built on a lighter network called the Evermore network, which gave us the ability to have a blockchain, have proof of work, and have a token without having, um, like I spoke to one project that's using BitTensor, and they said they had trouble because of the validators. They could only have so many nodes on the network, um, because of the heavy computation that it takes to make sure everything's in line. So, with a robust, mature system like that, it constrains you to not be able to do kind of anything you want to do. So, since we wanted to have thousands of nodes on the network, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe someday, um, we couldn't be constrained to this idea of like say having like 250 like they ran into in a very similar project. So, but more generally, there's a few other kind of bigger projects that I've seen that are using blockchain AI, but I haven't seen too many because it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. And the ones that are seem like they're saying, okay, we'll use blockchain to maybe give you access to AI. Like, um, I don't know. I don't really want to speak about these other projects very deeply because I don't research them heavily. But just in passing, um, I've heard of like Venice, and and I think that is one that says, okay, you can use blockchain tokens to pay for and utilize maybe a more decentralized uh, large language model, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the use cases that I've seen, in other words, mostly come down to um, let's take something that's a matured product or is a, a very structured product in AI, and let's marry it with a blockchain protocol, and there you go, right? We wanted to build something that kind of is a new design. It's a new design for kind of how to do AI, and we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
marry that with blockchain, with distributed
Mm-hmm.
consensus technologies. So our approach is a little bit different than most of these other projects in that particular way.
So by and large, AI is kind of separate typically from blockchain. But if you want to have AI and you want to have these big data centers, like Grok and ChatGPT, one way to solve the just the pure processing power they need would be to use Satori style network, access everybody's processing. So which that's not necessarily on blockchain, but it's a way of using processing power. But
Yeah, and to get it more decentralized, distributed. Um, yeah, if it's all out there on the whole network, distributed across the network, it's harder for the central entity to control. So, I
Mhm,
mean, I see that as a good thing in most
mhm,
cases. But you're right. It is hard to marry the two because not only do the economics kind of force let's centralize this AI and then sell a subscription, and that's our business model. But also, um, uh, well, also the economics say economies of scale. Why don't we, if we can do everything in house, we don't have to share weights. So AI right now is with large language models, especially, is usually about how do I make the biggest model I can. You know, that's you
mhm,
can't really do that on a distributed network because you have the overhead of, okay, now that I've trained something, I got to share the weights across the network. And it just takes way too long, thousands of times longer than building it all in one data center, right? And so,
mhm.
the overhead is not really built for making some kind of large um, centralized model. But I think the intuition that Satori brings to the table is to say, yeah, it's not. But what you can do is build a lot of little models and then have them communicate at a high level, like, say, share predictions with each other. And you can build a large meta model on the network. So you don't have to build a large individual model, you can build a meta model. And that's kind of our approach. And I haven't seen that approach anywhere else. I mean, um, as far as in marrying AI with blockchain, I haven't seen that approach.
Why is decentralization such an important driver for you? Is there could be ethics issues that arise with some of this stuff?
Yeah,
Uh,
yes. I mean, I never really got into the crypto what is it called? The crypto. It's kind of the movement that attached itself to blockchain in the first place. Maybe it came out of it. We don't know. Um, uh, Crypto anarchists, or I never got into
Hmm.
that kind of. Oh, there it is. Cypherpunk. I never got into kind of the cypherpunk scene, but I've always considered myself somebody who's kind of cypherpunk adjacent, who's like,
Hmm.
okay, we have the technology to do things in a distributed manner, to do things without anybody breathing down our neck, and so it's probably just part of my personality that says, look, there are some people that want control, and that's natural. They just want to be able to control the whole world, and that's the government impulse. And I'm not a total anarchist where I say that's just straight evil, right? But I am kind of like, well, I don't want to be that way. I want to let things go their own way for the most part, and then take control only if there's a problem. And so minimal government, minimal control is just the right way to do things, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, I guess that's kind of where the decentralized kind of impetus for me comes from.
So, if this program really gets its feet under it, what are some good examples of predictions that people might use it for? I mean, the easy one is what's BlackRock's share price going to be worth next year? I mean, things like that. Where's the S&P 500 going? And whether, but what are some other practical usages you see coming down the pipe for something like this?
The thing about predicting the future is that it's generally useful, and you can't always know in which ways it's useful because there's so many different people and so many different companies. So I can think of a few specific use cases perhaps, but I want to say that I cannot think of probably what will be the most important use cases, right? Because they're just surprising. So, but like I said, first of all, I wanted to build or want to build a world model of prediction. So I want to have much of the network kind of be dedicated, or be building models on large scale stuff, because forms a foundation of understanding that you can attach any more specific scale things to. Um, what those large scale things are is kind of government statistics. Whatever moves money in the world is probably a large scale thing. So you have an inflation rate, or the levers that government uses to modify the economy. If you can predict those, that's very important. Um, but like you said, other things like BlackRock, that's going to affect the whole crypto market and vice versa. So, yeah, I'd like to see the large scale things predicted. And at that
Hmm.
level, I have no idea what the use cases would be, because it's like every company would want to use that data for their own, means. And I don't know what those are going to be. But if you bring it down to a specific level where you're saying, well, we have found perhaps a niche of some kind of industry that has a lot of data streams that are all highly correlated, and and they're not very well correlated outside the niche. That's kind of what I'd like to see us find and start predicting. And we naturally found the first one of those, which is like cryptocurrencies that are um, often very niche cryptocurrencies, right? So altcoins, altcoins of altcoins, right? And so,
Hmm.
and I think that's why we've been able to see whatever success has been claimed. Um, when people said they were trading the market on this information and making, valuable trades or something, um, I think it's because it was such a niche area of markets, right? If you just unleash this on the S&P 500, I don't know if it would do any good at all, right? So,
Hmm.
but if you can find a niche that's really important to a small group of people or something, then it may have
Hmm.
a lot of use case, a lot of ability to predict the future in that area.
Yeah, I imagine BlackRock has a very big computer somewhere, probably built by IBM, that's trying to predict the stock market.
Right.
And it's notoriously hard to predict because it's so unpredictable. There's too many moving parts, too many global economies, too many micro, macro transactions and events that it's, as of today, I hope, maybe I don't know, but it's impossible as far as I know today. How is, I mean, maybe that's a bad example to compare how this thing could compare to, say, a supercomputer that's just studying the history of every day of the stock market and charts and predicting the 10 best picks for next week. Is this doing something similar? Is it charting history as well, going back to spot trends and adopting those?
Yeah, if that's in the data stream, it all kind of depends on what's in the data stream.
Hmm.
If the data stream has that kind of history, then it's available on the network and the
Hmm.
algorithms will find it and use it. So,
Hmm.
um, but somebody's got to put that data on the network first, right? It doesn't just exist, and the nodes don't go out into the free internet and just start, gathering data. They only look
Hmm.
at the Satori network, um, and and use that in their models. So absolutely, if somebody puts it on there, it's available.
Are you building in a disclaimer for margin of error? Or, you're not going to tell people this has a 100% success rate in predictions in 10 years.
Yeah, I hope
I can't pick.
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
I've ever. I try not to make any promises,
Don't bet the house.
right? Because it's just doing its best it can, and who knows how good that is? I don't know. And so, yeah,
Yeah. So being that it's predicting the future, say I was trying to pick a stock, just say, or who's going to win the next Super Bowl or something like that. You can't really act on that until you've seen the result come and go.
right,
So you're in kind of a quagmire as to, okay, well, it predicted it correctly, but if I went back knowing what I knew then, I'm not, still not going to bet on it.
right,
Um,
right. Especially those
so how?
one-off events. There's lots
Yeah.
of the I would say the prediction industry is all about one-off events right now. That's not our premise. So we started saying, let's not do one-off events. Let's do data streams. Our fundamental um, data structure is a stream. It's a stream of data. We're always going to assume that there's another event that's going to happen. And prediction markets, these have popped up and become popular where you can bet um, on future events. They're kind of one-off things. They're like, okay, and furthermore, it's about human attention making those predictions. Maybe the humans use algorithms, maybe they don't, but it's about betting. It's a betting structure. And we tried to make Satori not about betting. We wanted to build, so in contrast to what's out there, we wanted to build on data streams, always assuming there's more data. And we wanted to build a system that just worked automatically, didn't need betting. It does get rewarded for good predictions, but it doesn't have to put up uh, a lot of money in order to um, it doesn't have to risk money.
Hmm.
So we wanted to build that. So, um, but yeah, I don't know. I think I just kind of went off on a tangent there.
No, it's okay. Like one thing I think of, if this evolves is, healthcare. If I can tell Satori, my age, my height, my weight, tell it, it monitors my diet on my Fitbit and my exercise level. maybe I can lower my insurance premiums because Satori thinks I'm gonna, have a long life
Yes.
and be a low risk. I mean, is there any kind of practical applications like that that could arise from
I
something
think
like
there's a
this?
lot of practical applications like that, and I'd like to see that happen sooner than later. Your Sator we're building the Satori neuron, right? And right now it just takes in data, broadcasts out predictions for free. We're building a marketplace where you can pay predictors to predict a particular data stream that you want predicted. Um, but what we also want to do is build in the ability to do what you're asking locally and just, to have a free kind of AI engine that you can run locally and say, I want the network to predict a whole bunch of data, but I want only my node to see this specific data. Maybe it's your health or your spending habits. I do want this stuff predicted into the future, but I don't want it on the open network. I only want it on my node. And in that way, your node can work to ingest whatever's on the open network to help it predict whatever your particular um, use case is, right? And so I'd love to see that where you could plug in your own Fitbit into your own node and show your own data just to your own machine. So I'd love to see that.
This is one of those things where it could be a Black Mirror episode or it could be the greatest thing ever. It's just it's got so many different uses. I mean, being actually a true predictor, but I could see the business usages big time, like you say, in my own local area. If I'm in a city, if I open a bar on this corner, given the whole build of the city, what can I expect from maybe foot traffic? How many people go through here, after the hours of 5 o'clock every day? Maybe you can study a lot of analytics and maybe give you prediction models on how many people are going to walk by your business that day. I mean, something simple like that, like making decisions, could be a very powerful tool
That's right.
in business planning.
Yes. Business. And I think the benefit there is that it would automatically have access to the broader ecosystem of prediction, the broader ecosystem of what's going on, and be able to automatically correlate it. There's lots of businesses out there, and they all have business intelligence going on, models, data scientists, and they're all doing stuff. A lot of it is siloed. They work with their own business data, um, and that's it. Or if they're sophisticated a little bit, they find a data aggregator and they buy some data, and that's valuable, and that's about
Mhm.
it, right? And so they don't have this continual like fire hose of valuable data that's just free and open that they could consume and correlate with their internal information. And furthermore, they don't have a way, if they had valuable data that they don't mind sharing, they don't have a way to share it. And so
Mhm.
Satori solves those problems, I hope.
Yeah, I think predicting the future, I mean, people have probably spent a ton of money trying to figure out how to do it, and it's probably is becoming heavily AI driven. But if I can use that for a business decision, even if I could add 10% to my bottom line based on something like this a year, I mean, people are going to be falling all over themselves to get their hands on something like it. It could be a powerful tool. Um, what is going on today with Satori? How many nodes users are out there? Is it growing rapidly? What are the next 3 to 5 years? What does that look like for you at Satori?
The last numbers that I saw, I think the numbers are actually displayed on the website itself. Maybe we can just go there.
Hmm.
Because let's see here. The website gathers information from the network, sees how many people are connected, how many nodes are connected. That's satorinet.io. And as of yesterday, 3,995 connected neurons, making about 250,000 predictions a day. And anyway, so So we have
Those are
some.
requested predictions by the users?
Those are not requested. Those are saying, um, of all the data streams that are on the network, the automatic neurons automatically are predicting this many times a day.
So what is it automatically predicting? What are the parameters that these are just, I want to predict this, I'm Satori. What is it? What do you have
The
that
data
on?
streams that we have right now are mostly crypto prices. And
Right.
so the people that want those are using them for their own purposes. And yeah. So
Can it tell me what Satori is going to be worth in a year for cryptocurrency,
actually, I
something like that?
think one of the streams I recently saw was Satori, its own
Yeah.
price. And,
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention to that, but yeah, it is self-referential in this regard.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And then, yeah, the next 3 to 5 years, I mean, this is a year you already have over 3,000 users. Anticipate once the snowball gets rolling, it's going to grow fast, especially if you experience some success in prediction.
Right.
So, what are you working on currently to expand this?
Um, so we have several. So like I said, the social aspect was difficult for me. So I am focused on the technology always. That's what I like. So
Hmm.
um, we have several different initiatives technologically that we're working on, but it's not just me. Like there's a
Hmm.
team, and so but I know we're coming out with an app at some point, and I know there's an initiative to improve the neuron constantly. There's an initiative to improve the engine all the time. Um,
I think the cell phone would be a huge tool for this
Getting it
network.
on the phone, yes.
The data processing alone and just, yeah, being they're on 24/7.
So the thing about the phone, and the reason I didn't go that way in the beginning, because that's what everybody has said, like, why don't you put it on a phone? Um, because the algorithms we're using are very, I mean, they're running all the time. And they're pretty simple algorithms, but they're nice. They're robust machine learning algorithms. And so they do hit the CPU, I mean, literally all day. And so if you put that on a phone in its current incarnation, you would just run down your battery all day long, right? So I didn't think it was practical to put it on the phone yet. But I have been researching, learning more about algorithms we could use that are still provide value, but don't have to run all the time. So, and then I think that is the appropriate, once we really nail that, which we'll probably do on like a web browser plugin or something like that. Once we nail it, then we can port it over to be a phone app that anybody can,
Hmm.
you know. But we're not actually building that portion into the app at this time. I think we're
Hmm.
building kind of a self custody wallet for Satori in case you have any. And that'll be our foundation. And then we'll add these other things in later on when they
Hmm.
eventually come to full fruition.
Hmm. Well, it's very interesting. I might even have to try it out and try doing some predicting and see what happens. But
Yeah,
interesting to see where it's going to go. It's something that I'm going to pay attention to. I mean, imagine in my lifetime, there'll be predicting the future using things like this. Just pattern recognition is going to be huge. There's definitely a basis to pattern recognition. I mean, it's being used heavily, has been forever.
exactly.
This is just a different way to do it. And I think the way you've captured the way to do it by using the nodes on a broad network, decentralized, is probably the most ethical way to go about it.
I think so.
So yeah. So anything you'd like to add? I mean, obviously the website to get it. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, that's satorinet.io is the project website. There's a Twitter. All the links are on the website. There's a Discord. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's it.
Yeah, you're busy. You're building. You're monitoring. You're looking how to grow this into, bigger and better version of itself. So best of luck to you. I appreciate you coming on to discuss it.
Thank you.
And you take care.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. See ya.